What is going on, all you Pokemon collecting maniacs out there? This is Ryan, the PikiPikaPapa, and you guys know this is one of my favorite videos every single month, right? We're going to be looking at the actual grading data from the big four grading companies for last month. Now, we are not just going to look at the number of raw cards that they graded. We're going to look at it by set. We're going to look at it by individual Pokemon. We're going to look at it by individual cards. And then my man, Ryan from gemrate.com, he's the one who puts all this together for us. He gave me some data that I have been begging for, and I am so pumped to get it in front of you. We're going to look at actual gem rates by company here at the end of this video. And there's always these debates of PSA gives 10s, BGS gives 10s, SGC gives 10s, yada, yada, yada. We're going to have actual hard numbers to take a look at that. And I don't know, I'm not saying we're going to debunk any myths, but it's certainly going to be really, really cool for us to look at. So listen, if data like this gets you all kinds of excited, hey, we are building an amazing community here. I would love for you to be a part of it. Hit that subscribe button if you like what you see. Give us a thumbs up. Questions or comments, drop them down below. I can't wait to get into this, so let's not wait any longer. Let's do it right now. Okay, so listen, here's how we always start off. On the left-hand side, you see PSA, and then you see the other three grading companies. Now, you'll notice one thing. Look at how PSA jumps off on this graph compared to the others. It jumps off so much that on the right, we break out the other grading companies so we can actually see how they perform. Now, my takeaway from this is PSA did 1 million cards again last month, which is a great number. Now, that might feel a little bit light considering we had March and April, which were just absolutely through the roof. They were almost at 1.25 million cards for those 2 months. But my biggest takeaway is this. Hey, listen, it's basically flat month over month, but it's up 13% year over year. Now, that is one of the things that I want to call out because when you think about it, Scarlet and Violet hasn't really been that great. So the fact that PSA is still grading 1 million cards, even though it's not getting a huge contribution from the TCG side, which we're going to get into in just a minute, I think that is really good news for PSA. Now, one thing too is SGC sees an uptick, right? They're up 10% month over month, but for me, the biggest call out is they're still down 4% year over year. And you can see that last year in June, that was when SGC really fell off a cliff, and they've been trying to catch up ever since. Here's what I'm going to say about SGC. You go on their website, it is a deal-a-palooza, okay? They're doing, I think, Topps baseball cards for $9 each with a 5 to 10 day turnaround time. They're doing TCG cards for $15 each with a 5 to 10 day turnaround time. Grading is somewhat a personal experience. Like, you should love the slab, you should love the company. At the end of the day, that's all that matters. But for me, when I grade a card, this is something, if it's for a personal collection, I want to hand it down to my kids. I want it to be a good store of value. It's really hard for me to look at SGC right now as a good steward of that, simply because it feels to me like they're in a race to the bottom. They want to be the cheapest, they want to be the fast. Nothing wrong with that. But it just makes me feel like something's going to break at some point. The reality is, out of all of these companies, when you think about long-term over the next 10, 20, 50 years, which is how long I plan on holding on a lot of my singles for, some of these companies won't be there. Who is going to be there and who isn't? It's yet to be determined. But for right now, I really like the way PSA stacks up against everybody else. Beckett, again, I love Beckett. Beckett is up another month after month. They're up 14%, right? They're still up 4% year over year, which is really good. I've said this a million times. I am a big fan of Beckett. I have fond memories of Beckett. When I was a little kid, there was no internet. I had to use the Beckett magazine to look at my card prices. I am always cheering for Beckett. I just have some concerns about their ability to figure things out. Again, it's another company that I feel like is grasping at straws. They say we're going to change our grading scale. Then we say we're just kidding. We're not going to do that. Same thing with CGC, right? Like, CGC has now said, hey, 9.5s are going to get bumps to 10. Send us your 9.5s. We'll charge you $5. We'll reslab them into a 10 grade. Like, it feels like they're all over the place. And CGC is the only one that is down both year over year and month over month. I have said this for the last 4, 5 videos. We've been doing this video, I don't know, for 7, 8 months now. And I'm going to say I'm not a big believer in CGC, at least in the card space in the long run. They've got a lot of work to do. They really got to figure everything out. But I'm pulling for them. I've said this a million times. I really think that there should be a 1 and a 1A. And right now there's PSA and then just everybody else lumped at the bottom. I want one of these other grading companies to come out of left field, figure it out, get that price point, get that turnaround time, and really challenge PSA. Even though I'm a PSA guy, I want somebody else to challenge them because nobody's pushing PSA. They just own all of the business right now. All right, now that we've gotten off of these, let's get into some individual sets, okay? And I told you this. Again, I've had some concerns in the TCG space here from a grading perspective for a while, and that is because these top 3 sets, again, I was disappointed when I pulled up this information and I saw that the top 3 most graded sets have not changed. I'm fine with seeing 1999 Pokemon game up there. That has been up there every single month, but the fact that we still have Crown Zenith, which was launched in January, right? So it's been out for 6 months and it's still the number 2 graded one, and we have V-Star Universe on the Japanese side. Like, it just goes to tell me that the new products, the new things that Pokemon is launching just aren't that exciting because people aren't spending the money or taking the time to get the cards graded. I really thought that we would start to see a little more of an impact from Scarlet and Violet. Now, Scarlet and Violet is on this list finally. It's coming in at number 5. You see that down there. They had 13.1 thousand cards graded all time, 6.9 thousand cards graded last month, up 24%, which is good. I'm glad to see that people are finally getting those cards graded, but we're used to seeing sets pop a lot quicker than this, and the fact that it's been so long since Scarlet and Violet came out and they're just starting to get on the list right now just goes to show me that there wasn't a whole lot of love in it and not a lot of long-term prospects in it, right? Like, if people thought that there was a lot of value, a lot of ability to turn and burn these cards, I guarantee they would be grading at a much faster velocity. Now, I do love seeing Evolving Skies on here again, right? It was off the list for a while. It popped on the list last month. Love seeing it back on here. And hallelujah, praise the Lord, the 2022 Black Star promos with those Charizards from the UPC box has finally fallen off. And I will say this again, this is another really strong showing for Japanese sets as a whole. I think half of these sets up here are Japanese sets. And again, I thought it was really cool to call this out. Look, 1977 Star Wars is on here. I try and remember everybody. When we look at this data, it is absolutely dominated by Pokemon. But when we talk about this, this is truly all TCG data, right? So you got Magic, you got Star Wars, you got Pokemon. We're going to have Lorcana on here in the future. So anyways, just remember, even though this seems like all we're talking about is Pokemon, that's simply because Pokemon absolutely dominates the TCG market, and they are the ones who have the most velocity here in terms of grading. Now that we've talked about sets, let's talk about the most graded cards. Again, the other one that really concerns me is the fact that the number 1 most graded card, again, month in and month out, has been this Japanese promo Pikachu from Scarlet and Violet, the pre-order one. Now remember, Japanese cards come out before the US one, so even though this is Scarlet and Violet and we're thinking of that timeline, remember, this card dropped a long time ago. I do like seeing that Japanese Magikarp up there, though. Everybody knows that. I absolutely love that card. I think it's beautiful, so I'm excited to see that up there. Crown Zenith Full Art Pikachu is another one that has been up here for a long time. Really cool call out. I know I get tons of questions on this channel about the Japanese card market. I promise you I'm trying to educate myself as best as I can, but I will never do a video. I will never provide insight unless I feel like I have a great command of the subject matter, and I just don't have that for Japanese yet. But really interesting to see that 7 of the 10 most graded cards at PSA are Japanese cards. Just goes to show you all of the interest, all of the hype that's in the hobby right now. Again, I'm a big fan of the Japanese market in general. It is a fan favorite in regards to the Pokemon market. They are feverish for the product over there, so I think you can do a lot worse than dipping your toe into the Japanese market. I just am trying to get a better understanding of it before I provide any input. Now, what do we always look at too? We don't only look at the single cards, but we also look at these gem rates, right? So you have the June gem rate and you have the all-time gem rate. Now, I always talk about this. I always say, hey, listen, I think there's an advantage to getting your cards to PSA early. For whatever reason, it seems like as time goes on, the monthly gem rate seems to be falling off of the all-time gem rate, which simply says, you know, you get your cards there earlier for whatever reason. Seems like you have better chances of getting a PSA 10. Now, the interesting thing is I went back and I looked at all of these videos that we've done. Only 3 instances, and there's one of them here. Only 3 times have we seen a monthly gem rate. So if you look at the Pokemon Sword and Shield, Crown Zenith, Radiant Charizard down there, you'll see that the June 23 gem rate was 61%. That means that all of those cards that were submitted to PSA this month, 61% of them got a PSA 10. All time the gem rate's 58%. We almost never see that. Again, going after months and months and months and months and months of data, we've only seen that happen 3 individual times. One of them here. All other times, the monthly gem rate is either down or flat compared to the all-time gem rate. For me, statistically, that is a big enough statistical pool for us to say, okay, there's absolutely a there. So if you are into these newer sets, if you have some cards that you really want, if you think they're great long-term investments and you have them, send them to PSA now. If you have the funds, if you have the ability, I would send them now simply because as time goes on, it seems to be that the gem rate drops over time. Now, next one that we're looking at right here, this slide really is unchanged, but for me, the biggest thing that I like to call out, Marnie is still on here. We've never seen a trainer stay on this individual subject grading list for this long, which is really exciting. And then what happens? Elisa pops up down there on the bottom. Now she's been on and off, and you know, there's that Sparkle card that I think is really doing well in Crown Zenith. So really interesting to see that card up on here, or that individual on here. And I'm liking to see the bottom shuffle a little bit. Listen, Charizard, Pikachu, Mew, they're never going to change. Those are going to be your big three from now until the end of time, probably, unless something fundamentally shifts in the Pokemon market. But I like watching the bottom end of this. I like the Giratina's still on there. Zapdos is always on there. So anyways, really, really cool list to look at. And I always talk about this when I'm talking about individual cards that I'm going after. These are always the ones that I look at because obviously the market is there, right? These are what people like. These are what people buy. These are what people grade. So this is just another tool in our tool belt when we're trying to play chess out there to give us an idea of where we may be able to identify some opportunities in the market. Now, next one right here, graded by category. So this was the first time I pulled this data and I was kind of like, man, that sucks. But I have some thoughts and theories behind it. So now TCG dropped from 41% of all of PSA grading to 39%. And then this month it's down to 36%. Now TCG is still the #1 most graded category. But again, 2 months ago, TCG represented 41% of all cards graded at PSA. Now it's down to 36% after a couple months. And again, I always look at this too. I combine the big three ball sports, baseball, basketball, football, because I have this belief and I have this conviction that at some point, TCG is going to overtake those three as the most graded category. And I don't think it's fair to separate them out. I combine them all together. And when you look at all of these numbers down here, you see from December, January, February, March, April, May, I always compare the total TCG number to the total number of baseball, basketball, and football. And you see the TCG number has been doing really strong. We have an 80, we have a 94, we have an 86, an 88, an 85. This month it dropped down to 60. Now, I think this is where we're starting to see the impact of the weaker sets. And this might be a 3-year rotation, right? Like every 3 years, we just see the TCG drops off compared to ball sports, because in ball sports, every year you get a reset. Every year you get a new crop of rookies that are coming up from college into the pro ranks. Everybody thinks the next quarterback, or who's the next Tom Brady, or who's the next, I don't know, who's the next Aaron Rodgers, right? Like, who's the next great person? Who's the next great Michael Jordan, LeBron James, whatever? Who's the next great individual? And everybody piles into their cards. Now, in TCG, we don't have the same thing, right? Like, we're reliant on Charizard, Pikachu, Mew, the big ones we just talked about, being released on awesome pieces of cardboards and awesome set. And we know that the beginning of eras typically don't perform well. So I think that's why we're seeing this downward pressure in the TCG category compared to the ball sports. It's going to be really interesting to file this out and to watch this and how this performs over years and years and years and however long the PikiPikaPapa channel's around for, because I do think that next year we're going to see a significant shift in this month, because again, we should have some more exciting products out. So anyways, super cool to call that out. I spent a lot of time thinking about it, and all of a sudden it kind of dawned on me, and I'm like, well, this is going to be really cyclical. It's probably going to go in these 3-year cycles. So it's really interesting there. And again, this doesn't mean anything to me simply because TCG's down because we don't have a lot of exciting TCG stuff going on in the Pokemon space to drive it. So, hey, and not for nothing, congratulations, ball sports. Love seeing baseball, basketball, football up there. You guys know I'm also a big football card collector, so always love seeing my football cards do well. Now, this is what I was talking about. My man Ryan at gemrate.com provided this information for me. Now, we have had the PSA gem rate in sports, the PSA gem rate in TCG. We've had the Beckett gem rate, the SGC. We have never had Beckett broken out. So all this is right here is it gives you the eras, right? The 2020s, 2010s, 2000, 1990s, right? And then all of the cards that are submitted, and then the percentage of them that end up getting in PSA's Alley, a PSA 10 gem mint. In Beckett, it can get a 9.5 or a 10. SGC, it gets a 10. CGC, it gets a 9.5 or a 10. So really interesting to look at this. So basically, if you're sending in ultra modern Pokemon cards, so anything from the 2020s into PSA, you have you average 68.1% get gem mint 10. Really interesting. Beckett, on the other hand, almost 80% of all those ultra modern cards that are getting sent to Beckett in the TCG space are walking away with a 9.5 or a 10. Really interesting. Honestly, that number blew me out of the freaking water, right? Now, SGC, again, SGC is not broken out by TCG or sports, but that's fine. Ryan, you don't have to go and do that for me. I totally get it. But CGC, obviously, CGC is all TCG cards. So you look at that and they're at 63.3. So believe it or not, CGC has the lowest gem rate at 63.3. Then you got PSA at 68.1. Then you got Beckett, which is absolutely crazy, all the way up at 80%. I think that is just absolutely nuts. Now, this is the first month that we have seen it broken out by this. So what I'm saying is, let's take this with a huge grain of salt. We're going to have to watch this over a couple months. Again, my man at gemrate.com was nice enough to do this for us, so I know he'll continue to do it for us. But we'll have to get some trends going on here. Now that we have PSA, now that we have Beckett, now that we have CGC, we'll be able to look at this over time and see if there really is a there. But for me, this is data that I've been absolutely craving to get. I think it's really interesting. There's all kinds of message boards and debates going on all over the place. Well, PSA is an easy 10. Well, CGC is an easy 10. Well, Beckett's an easy 10. Now we have actual hard, fast data to support those thoughts and opinions and arguments. So really cool. I also want to say too, the other interesting thing to me that I always talk about is in PSA, I think about the volume of Japanese cards that get graded, right? Like we know Japanese cards have an incredibly high gem rate. We looked at it on the previous slide. A lot of them are up in the 80s, mid 80s, high 80s from a gem rate. So the fact that PSA is grading a ton of Japanese Pokemon cards right now, I guarantee you is inflating that number up a little bit. I'd be willing to bet that the regular PSA gem rate is probably more in the low 60s, high 50s, just for US cards. But interesting stuff. I have nothing to back that up, but I thought that was a really, really cool call out. Now, next one right here. Listen, this is TCG cards graded at PSA by month, and I thought this was a great view and a great way for us to talk about the overall health of the TCG market. Here's what's encouraging to me. When you think about a year ago, there was a lot more excitement in the hobby, right? There was a lot more exciting sets out there. There was a lot of cool promos out there. A lot of people were grading a lot of things. Even with that, even though things have cooled off quite a bit in the last year, just in regards to having awesome sets and awesome new release cardboard, it is still up, right? The TCG numbers are still up compared to last year. The other thing that is really cool for me is, listen, last year at this point, we saw about a 6-month flat trend. Look at that. Look from June of 2022 all the way really till October of 2022. It stayed in the 280, 290, 270. It really didn't fluctuate much. It was this real gradual up and down thing. But the reality is it stayed right around 280,000 TCG cards graded per month. It's going to be fascinating for us to see if that trend continues. Does the grading trend stay short over the next, stay flat over the next 6 months? Or do we see an increase? Do we see a decrease? This is what I absolutely love about all of this stuff. Now, the interesting thing too is when you look at January versus June of 2022, June was up 33%, right? So look at that. You can see January 2022, there was 213,000 cards graded. June of 2022, there was 283,000 cards graded, I believe. Now, when you look at it this year, there was only a 2% bump. Again, it doesn't give me any cause for concern because we just don't have that much new exciting product out there, so people aren't going to grade. So anyways, super excited that it's up year over year. Super excited that the grading volume is what it is, despite all of the pressure that we're facing from a little bit of some lackluster sets coming up. I am pumped over the next 6 months to see what happens and see if we follow suit that we did in 2022. Now, I always end with this. Here's what I'm going to say. If PSA grading 1 million cards in a month is a bad month, we as a hobby are doing all right. Again, the biggest thing is the cardboard collecting space. We want cardboard collecting, not just TCG. We want baseball to do well, basketball to do well, football to do well, hockey to do well, wrestling to do well. Like, at the end of the day, we're all a part of this amazing collecting and investing and just enjoyable community that comes down to collecting these pieces of cardboard that hold memories, that hold characters, that hold people that we hold near and dear to our hearts. So when I look at this, I always end with talking about PSA as a whole. Listen, June is up 13% year over year, down 1% month over month, but overall, I would say that the cardboard collecting hobby is strong. We're seeing some great price appreciation in the sports card space. Some of the high value cards are still a little bit low off of their all-time highs in 2021, 2022, but guess what? We're seeing a lot of things rebound. I know my football card collection is starting to pop off again, which is really exciting. So again, we all want the hobby to do well. I think this is a great sign that we're in a great place from a cardboard perspective. And if you made it to the end of this video, we do awesome data stuff like this all the time, guys. I would love it if you hit that subscribe button. Questions or comments, drop them down below. If you liked what you saw, give us a thumbs up. I hope you guys have an epic day, and I will talk to you soon. See you, everybody.